Obviously, as we all been talking about round and round for the past couple days, is this idea that 70% of the world's population is going to live in cities by 2050. That's a dramatic change over one generation, 1.5 generations, and that means rethinking how we build our cities. What are our cities? It goes back to some of the great conversation from this morning about the urban habitat. At the same time, there's this digital tech infusion. We're finding that many of our clients, whether it's Amazon or Tencent or Google or Samsung, they want to be in cities or they want to be part of building cities. And that's bringing in different thinking about what a high-rise is and what a city is. This happens to probably be the world's tallest dog park. So it's on the 17th floor of the new Amazon headquarters, where I think just about everybody in the building has a dog, as far as I can tell. And that's very different. What do you do with dogs in high-rise buildings, and how does that change it? So right there's already a clue that something's changing in the world. So this paradigm shift, which is driven from my perspective from the social perspective. So this is a map of the internet. I'm sure everybody's seen this map before, but the basic underlying principle that we've been digging at in the tall building and in the workplace and working with companies like Tencent is, how does this idea of connecting people in a way that we never could have imagined in the past create a better and more human experience in the city and the high-rise building? That takes us from this sort of paradigm where the high-rise building today is probably what's on the left. It's very simplistic. It's stacked floor plates. It's disconnected. It's not very high-tech at all, to something that's very highly networked in a completely different way, which then may suggest that this button doesn't work very well. Okay, there we go. It may suggest that the building needs to change. The porosity needs to change. The character of it needs to change. The way people interact with it needs to change. This is obviously changing. No tech company that we've ever worked with wants to be in any of these things. Yet, however, you go all over the world, people are still working like that, which is amazing to me. Most tech companies are looking for this kind of experience, or some version that reflects their brand, something that's about a social interaction, something that's comfortable for people because everybody's different, so they all want to work in a different way. At the same time, what we're finding, whether we're working with Boeing or whoever, materiality is changing, technology is changing, so that kind of stuff is influencing how we think about building systems, about structures, about form, and those sorts of things. So we're taking that on as well as we sort of move forward in this paradigm. And we're also taking on the spirit of research. I think architects always did research, engineers have always done research, but that spirit's changing because it's being driven by social issues now. It's being driven by creating community and human connection. So this is our fellow, John Medina, who's helping us understand how do people actually work better? How do they interact better? How do they talk to one another? And how does that influence space, architecture, form, and programming? So we take that, and we take the idea of research and data and analysis and performance, and we put that into understanding very simple problems to very complex problems. This is a fairly simple problem. Maybe it's intuitive. Where do you put the core to actually get people to talk to each other? Probably not where we typically put it, right? And so we do the data, we actually verify whether that's true or not. And that's also learning from our clients of how they investigate a problem and come to a conclusion. At the same time, what we found with all of our technology clients, ironically, is that it's all about nature as well. They're very interested in the influence of nature on your brain, on the way that you work, and the way that you live throughout your day. So that's a critical aspect of what we've been pulling in. So all of these things make us ask sort of, so what? There's lots of other ones. And I didn't dwell on form giving, form making, and all those sorts of things that are out there that technology is driving as a tool for us. But I'm dwelling more on how do we get people to talk to each other. And that therein lies the challenge, and that therein lies the connection towards innovation, synergy, and new thinking. So what? So if we project some of these ideas out a little bit further, we start thinking about what the high-rise is based on this socialization thesis. The high-rise probably wants to be something more of a democratic structure. You might say that, well, today it's kind of democratic, but it's not. It's highly hierarchical. Can we kind of approach it from a Manhattanization of the high-rise? Can it become a grid? Can it be multi-purpose? Can it be mixed use? I think about the beautiful section that Vinny showed this morning with all the colors and the interaction, all that kind of stuff. That's what I imagine is the future of the high-rise. deconstructing the core. A lot of this is about deconstructing because this typology that we're all talking about here is highly ossified and highly fossilized. And if we can deconstruct that, that then creates the seams for people to actually talk to each other, and actually interact and actually create some new ideas. So the more we can move towards the right, towards a community and a series of spaces that people understand and they can see each other, I think the more we'll move towards innovation and basically a happier place to work. There's some good conversations earlier this afternoon about lifting and whatnot, but movement systems are another one. This linear aspect is also reinforcing the ossification of the high-rise, and it's reinforcing the disconnection of people. So if we can look at it from a grid perspective or a multivalent perspective as a movement system, then we also could open up a lot of possibilities. And then thinking about it from a city planning. So if the high-rise building is a city planning problem, and I think working with technology companies, I believe they think about this as an issue. From their product and their ideas, it's a planning problem. And if we think about it in that maybe public space is legislated vertically, that also changes the way that we interact with the building. And maybe through planning and zoning, there's also an idea that this vertical urbanization cannot be at the whim of a developer, at the whim of even a corporate client, but it's purposeful. So it's purposeful, just as these old style planning and zoning regulations are for setbacks and heights are. It's purposeful in terms of creating green space, public space, maybe street volumes. As we define a street volume this way, we might define a street volume that way. And that sort of opens up all sorts of possibilities. So these things are also in our mind about how do we leverage what the future of the high-rise is through this social perspective. And this other point about it's not really green facades, it's more of the building as an ecosystem. Green facades is a simplistic way of thinking about it. The more interesting way is thinking of it as a true ecosystem, which is, again, human-based or life-based. So if we include plants and sky and air and all those sorts of things, if our buildings are more organic and systemic, that will also change the way that we interact and change the way we'll probably perform in the buildings as well. We've been doing a lot of studies about this idea of the villagification of a high-rise as well. So the village is, the premise is there that you're like a team in a workplace. And a lot of the teams that we work with, like Tencent, is broken into teams or neighborhoods. If we think about that as a building block for building a building, and then creating enough of this deconstructive sort of tissue space in between that you get the connectivity, like you would have in a city, a plaza, a park, a small square, those sorts of things. And working from a modular perspective is sort of the next thought that we've been developing. And then the next thought is this idea of daylight for all. So if we start thinking about, then we start pulling technology in and analyzing our buildings to solve other problems. So if there's towers everywhere and all the shadows are covering the city and the daylight's gone, what do we do about that? That's probably a geometry problem, it's a technology problem, it's a material problem. At the same time, super light towers, materials and thinking, how do we actually start thinking about the buildings as light as possible, learning from the Boeings of the world, the carbon fiber of the world, all that kind of stuff, to change the perspective of what a building should be. This is a study we recently did on a super tall tower of reducing steel and concrete by 35 to 40%. And that's something that's within reason. It should be something we think about. But as long as you're in the typical paradigm, you're not able to think that in that way. That's also why we love working with tech companies, because they're thinking about the paradigm in some totally different way that we haven't considered. And they don't care about the old paradigm because they need to innovate and push the boundaries. So a few case studies before I hand it off to Mr. Wan. There's a few things that have actually been going on in terms of testing these ideas. Some of what I just showed you is like, what if? And maybe, and probably we should do that, and we should do that, we could do that. And this takes time, of course, because we're building huge buildings out of huge amounts of material. And how do we actually make that happen for real? So there's a lot of things happening. We're working with Amazon on their headquarters and rethinking what the urban interface is. So this is actually a biodome right in the middle of the city of Seattle that rethinks what a workplace is, what the meeting space is, and how do you actually connect to the city. So there's all sorts of things that go into this, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Just wanted to show that real quickly. And then what's interesting is in second-tier cities in the US, we're actually looking at already at this idea of the democratic high-rise, where mixed uses are starting to spring up out of the city and create something much more expressive in its experiential perspective. And I think that's a fundamental change that's happening. We're also rethinking, back to Vinny, I don't know where Vinny went, but the hollow tower, the idea that the tower could be hollow. That was Patrick, but the idea that the tower doesn't need to have the core stuck in the middle, it needs to have the people in the middle, because the people are what the business is about, the people is what the society is about. So put them in the middle and don't put the core in the middle. That seems like a dramatic waste of time. So another one that we're working on, this just finished, which is the headquarters for Samsung in the US. And this was also an effort to work with a technology company that's creating hardware, software, everything that we all use in our daily lives, but breaking them out of a very traditional way of working and creating as many seams as possible to get them to actually talk to each other. And that becomes the challenge in this particular project. And as you can see, it's essentially two towers that we then put together, linked together into a series of bridges. And then most importantly, it's in a way it's easy to tie them together horizontally, but then how do we actually insert some sense of life in the middle? So we separated and essentially built 4 two-story buildings that then float over the city. And those 4 two-story buildings are contextual to Silicon Valley because it's all two-story buildings. And throughout all of Silicon Valley, we just happen to stack them up into a 10-story building, which is a super high-rise in San Jose, by the way. And the results are something that creates a powerful sense of connection. All the workplaces are looking at each other now. They're creating a sense of entry. At the same time, there's on the bridges that link the two towers together, there's social spaces. And at the same time, these gaps, these seams in the building, those become nature. They become food, fitness, all those magnets that people want. So food always attracts everybody to these spaces. And then food also comes out into the garden, out of the building, and forces people out of their seats, out of their building to cross paths. Always looking for ways to engineer that crossing of paths. And the expression of the building is not the expression of the building, it's the expression of the society in the building. And that's where we started, not from the other way around. And one last case study, which some of you will see tomorrow. Some of you may have already seen driving in from Nanshan or some other parts of Shenzhen. But this is the headquarters that Mr. Wan and I collaborated on together for Tencent. And this was a problem of connectivity, communication, and community, as I mentioned earlier. But this really was what it was all about. Understanding what Tencent does, connecting people together. So that's clear. Understanding what their customer is and what their employee is, which are remarkably similar. So that made it a little bit easy, I guess. But so none of that form, shape, anything happened before we understood really internally what they were all about and they were trying to do, before we could create the framework for them to connect their people together. And that also meant ditching the traditional high-rise as much as we could. It's an incremental process, but this meant we had to split the building into 2 because if it's one tower, there's no conversation. So we split the building in 2, we connect them together, but then we have to connect them together with something meaningful. Nobody crosses a bridge from the 38th floor to the 38th floor between 2 towers. Why would they bother? So we put things in those spaces that they actually want to go use. At the same time, that becomes a vertical campus. Each one of those bridges link them together. It becomes a purposeful roadmap to tie them all together. And the results are, this tapestry of experiences vertically, this vertical campus expressed in the city, which is on one hand bold, on the other hand unexpected, on the other hand soft at the same time. So with that, I will hand it off to Mr. Wan to talk about the other aspect and the other perspective how we got to this problem from Tencent's viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan was kind enough to say that he was learning from tech company, but I think cities was evolving because of you. And you architects are the ones who are writing histories for city. I'm from Tencent. My name is Wan Chao. I've been thinking in evolving cities, how does tech company play these roles? So my topic is internet and architecture. Tencent, as you know, set up in 1998. After 17 years of rapid growth, we are now largest internet service provider in China. In 2015, our chairman, Mr. Ma, proposed Internet Plus, and Internet Plus is now part of the national strategy. Our market cap has been top 5 in the world. Our 7 divisions provide a full suite of internet products. We now employ 32,000 people after 17 years, and 40% of headcount are R&D, with an average age of 29 years old. So now, with such a growth of headcount, has to be based on a lot of workspace. The need for workplace started from 2008 to this Tencent Tower, which is 60,000 square meters. After Tencent Tower, we have about 2 to 3. We have the new incremental office space requirement equivalent to 2 to 3 Tencent Tower every year. So with that expansion, how are we going to look at our company versus architecture and buildings? So I'd like to take this in 3 aspects. It all evolved the same concept of internet mindset to develop the workspace with Tencent characteristics. First of all, it's all about user experience. Now, Tencent, in the internet space, we are known for our products. Anything is based on user values and user experience. You might not know that if you talk about internet product, it takes a lot of work to come up with a product like research, survey, psychological analysis. We have to employ a lot of tools before a product can be launched. All these methodologies, mindsets, analysis will also have an impact on our infrastructure. Now, comparing with renowned consulting firms, all these consulting firms also conduct survey analysis on our users. And they have come up with a data model unique to Tencent. That data model, in summary, is all about efficient and pleasant working style, exchange and sharing and learning, comfortable and healthy lifestyle. That was the workplace scenario that we are also trying to project in a Binhai project. Like what Jonathan was saying, by an innovative stroke by architect, and we come up with this Binhai Tower for Tencent. The data model was actually also being used for other partners. I believe our other partners, like here in Beijing, again, we are developing a tech building in Beijing, employing the same concept. But this is different from Binhai. Binhai is a vertical, but this is more lateral. It's a single story with 28,000 square meter coverage, 180 by 180 meter, with 2,000 employees working in the same floor. That also brings a lot of challenge to architects, like the lighting, human design, ventilation, privacy. So the point I'm trying to get at is actually Tencent buildings are all a result of internet mindset. It's all about the logic of internet product. We don't want to be the tallest or the largest, but it has to be present its own temperament, presented with its own personality and its own cultural traits. So the second point I'd like to present is the focus on ecology. As you know, Tencent's in the internet circle, we're trying to maintain and develop an internet ecosystem. We're trying to tap into our own strengths, trying to bring up all the upstream and downstream players to form a complete ecosystem. That mindset and philosophy is also projected on our architectural designs. During planning phase, we've been working with architects to employ the concept of maintaining a friendly connection with our neighbors. Like the Binhai Tower, it was actually on a knot in Hohai of Shenzhen. It is actually connecting Binhai Avenue and Baishi Road. In the meantime, it is neighboring the Shenzhen Entrepreneurial Plaza is also a connection point. So ultimately, in such a nodal position, is going to form a portal. As I mentioned, it's based on 3 data models. All these data models can be easily employed to construct such a poetic construction on these nodal positions.
Besides, and also starting from the planning and also the drawing, and then to the commissioning. So actually, together with the consultant and designer, and we have made a very detailed studies, including the lighting and recycle and energy saving. So this is a very holistic system of green strategy, because we hope that for this Binhai area, we hope that we can be granted the second star of national green standard and also the LEED certificate. And next is Internet Plus. Just now we mentioned that our CEO, Mr. Ma Huateng, proposed the Internet Plus, which has already been turned into the national strategy, which is also part of our philosophy in this building. As a matter of fact, in this seafront building, and we have used our own internet-based technologies, and also on our cloud platform, and we also set up our we-based intelligent and smart platform. So based on this platform, as we all know that this is a seminar on architecture, not on IT technology. I don't want to probe into detail about this internet-based technology, but I still want to use 2 minutes to play one video. Through this video, well, it is not dedicated for this seminar, but what I want to show is that in the process of development of a smart platform, you will see some of the snapshots. Maybe it is not quite logical for you, and in between, and you will still see some different sets of technologies. And so this is a very short video to show a series of internet-based technologies. So here you will see the elevator system and also our energy management system. So this is the scenarios. So you can also see the video monitoring and conference system. And also the smart parking system. And also the monitoring of the elevator operation, the lighting control. So in our conference system, you can see the facial recognition system. This facial recognition system will also be associated with our security system. Well, within these 2 minutes, you can already see that on this platform. What I want to say is that, so and our business lines and business and SNG and also IoT system and our other portfolio, for example, facial recognition system, and also the WeChat-based facilities and WeChat-based SDK, and also MIT's indoor positioning system, and also our security system and other platforms, and are all incorporated in this building. For this seafront building, and for Tencent, so actually, we think that this is our lab for all our product portfolio. All the products haven't been used in this experiment. We want to know how to maximize the application of these products. We hope that between people and things, and also between things, can all be connected. Well, in this lab, we also believe that it is not just about our own products, and we can also have an experiment for other partners and products as well. For example, utilities, meters and elevators, and also the cameras, and also the door access system, and also the other smart devices. So this is also a lab for our products and also our partners and products as well. So we hope that we can continue to join hands with all the architects and designers to probe into more about the smart technology in the future. Thank you.